It's not just Trump on trial in the Senate, it's democracy itself. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Shill party. I don't know how to describe it beyond that. It's the shills for billionaires, shills for big corporations. The Republican Party bought and sold as a result of the Supreme Court legalizing that kind of behavior. But let's talk about the impeachment. While Donald Trump is on trial in the Senate, many commentators are pointing out that the Senate is also at trial, but not a lot of people are pointing out that democracy is on trial. The American Republic is on trial. The Constitution is on trial. The idea of constitutionally limited separations of power is on trial here. The executive branch, the president, and the legislative branch, Congress, are supposed to operate as two separate spheres. And when Mitch McConnell comes out and says, well, I'm working closely with the president and we're going to, basically rig this trial, that's insanely destructive to democracy. And have no doubts. What we see right now around the world, what we see Modi doing in India, what we see Duterte doing in the Philippines, what we're watching right now with President Putin in Russia, where he's changing the rules of the game. Bolsonaro in Brazil, packing the courts and getting ready to do this stuff. Orban in Hungary, Duda in Poland. Country after country after country, we're seeing slide from being democratic republics to being oligarchies. And that's what's at stake here. I really don't think I'm overstating this, and I think that, when I'm done with this rant, you will probably agree with me, if you don't already. The real danger here is that Trump is not convicted. He claims exoneration. And you and I both know he's perfectly willing to lie about this stuff. When Bill Barr came out, his attorney general came out and lied about what was in the Mueller report and let that sit there for 3 weeks before America actually found out that the Mueller report said, they had over 100 contacts, with Russians, and they were trying as hard as they could, but they were just too incompetent to come up with an actual conspiracy that we could find. And then in part two, they go in and say, well, maybe they were competent and maybe there was a conspiracy because here's 10 specific instances of obstruction of justice where they just kept the information from us, so we can't be sure if Trump was colluding with foreign governments. And Seth Abramson expands it beyond Russia to Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United Arab Republic. Or the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. So, in my opinion, what we're looking at is the fate and future of our democracy, frankly. I think if Trump comes out of this thing still in office, just like he to this day is, it's insane. He says, read the transcript. This is in almost every tweet where he talks about impeachment. Well, he knows that 99% of Republicans will never read the transcript and 98% of Americans will never read the transcript. So he pretends that partial transcript of his conversation with Zelensky exonerates him when it actually doesn't. It's so clear that he's shaking down this foreign leader and this foreign government. And if he gets quote exonerated, if he is able to run around the country saying, I've been totally exonerated, it was all a hoax or hoax, he might get reelected in 2020. He's betting that he can play this game to his benefit. Keep in mind, throughout the Republican primary and then throughout the general election in 2015 and 2016, Donald Trump kept saying and doing things that everybody said, oh my God, he's not going to survive that. There's no way. From the Billy Bush tape to trashing John McCain. The list just goes on and on and on. And yet he used all of that, all the publicity that came from that to make everything about him. And here he is. He's president of the United States. So just to go back to first principles, Federalist 65 is where Alexander Hamilton, who was not a slaveholder and worked much of his life against slavery, he was from New York. Alexander Hamilton writes in Federalist 65, in the first paragraph, this is where he was talking about this entire Federalist paper. This particular Federalist paper is written about impeachment. And Alexander Hamilton talking about, quote, a well-constituted court for the trial of impeachments. That's the first sentence. He said the subject of its jurisdiction, in other words, what the Senate should look at in an impeachment trial, the subjects of its jurisdiction are those offenses which proceed from the misconduct of public men. Or, in other words, from the abuse or violation of some public trust. I just read to you the first and second sentence of Federalist 65, in which one of the guys who helped write the Constitution lays out exactly why that impeachment is in there. The next sentence after that, he's talking about the offenses for which a president could be impeached. They are of a nature which may with peculiar propriety be denominated political, as they relate chiefly to injuries done immediately to the society itself. See, politics is the mechanism through which we decide who's going to basically run our society. And then he adds at the end of this paragraph, he talks about, on the one hand, impeachment is a cure for somebody who's abusing power, abusing their office, which is the first article of impeachment against Trump. The second article of impeachment against Trump is for covering it up. Obstruction of Congress. The White House has turned over not one document. This has never happened before in an impeachment trial. Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and even the initial impeachment investigation for Richard Nixon. In every case, the White House turned over documents that were subpoenaed, because the subpoena is the law. The White House complied with the law. The Trump administration is not complying with the law. And now it has gone to this political body run by Mitch McConnell. And I'm going to go through, the pleadings of the Democrats and the pleadings of the Republicans and familiarize you with all this stuff over the next 15, 20 minutes here. But Hamilton opens this first paragraph of Federalist 65, and I encourage you to look it up and read it. He opens the first paragraph by saying that a president shall be impeached for abuse of his public trust. Quote, from the abuse or violation of some public trust, end quote. That's how he opens it. And then he ends the first paragraph with a warning. And he's warning, in my opinion, specifically of Mitch McConnell. He said there will always be the greatest danger that the decision, in other words, the vote in the Senate, in the trial, will be regulated more by the comparative strength of political parties than by the real demonstrations of innocence or guilt. Oh my God. Alexander Hamilton, not a slaveholder, back in 1788, March 7th, 1788, saying the greatest danger will be that the decisions will be regulated more by the comparative strength of parties than by the real demonstration of innocence or guilt. The greatest danger, he said. It's not the president, it's Mitch McConnell, according to Alexander Hamilton. So, let's dig into exactly, what's going on. And I've got Speaker Pelosi's statement here, too, that I'm going to share with you in a few minutes. But let me just lay out exactly who said what. Right? On Saturday, the House impeachment managers, these 7 people that Nancy Pelosi introduced us to a few days ago, they put forward a 111-page legal brief, basically their indictment of Donald Trump. And that legal brief includes the following language. President Trump abused the powers of his office to invite foreign interference in an election for his own personal political gain and to the detriment of the nation. The powers which he swore a sacred oath to use for the nation's benefit. Actually, the next sentence. The American people entrusted President Trump with extraordinary powers vested in his office by the Constitution. Powers which he swore a sacred oath to use for the nation's benefit. President Trump broke that promise. He used presidential powers. This is from what the Democrats filed with the Senate. He used presidential powers to pressure a vulnerable foreign partner to interfere in our elections for his own benefit. In doing so, he jeopardized our national security and our democratic self-governance. He then used his presidential power to orchestrate a cover-up, unprecedented in the history of our republic. A complete and relentless blockade of the House's constitutional power to investigate high crimes and misdemeanors. That's the first, full paragraph from the preamble of this page. And then they continue. President Trump maintains that the Senate cannot remove him even if the House proves every claim in the articles of impeachment, which he has. I'll get to that in a little bit. This is a chilling assertion. It is also dead wrong. The framers deliberately crafted a constitution that allows the Senate to remove presidents who, like President Trump, abuse their power to cheat in elections, betray our national security, and ignore checks and balances. That President Trump believes otherwise and insists he is free to engage in such conduct again only highlights the continuing threat he poses to the nation if allowed to remain in office.